Morning, everyone, and welcome to our Heavenly Parent Holy Community Oceania Hundoke. And today is Ahn Shi, and today I will be offering the presentation. And today is also the Thursday, the 15th of July, or the 6th of June, in the 9th year of Chonglaguk. So let's begin, as always, with a bow to our Heavenly Parents and True Parents. Chariot, Kyombe. Haro. And let's recite our family pledge, both in Korean and English. Thank you.
가정맨세 이 전일국 주인 우리 가정은 참 사랑을 중심하고 하늘 부모님과 참 부모님을 모시어 전주의 대표적 가정이 되며 중심적 가정이 되어 가정에서는 효자, 국가에서는 충신, 세계에서는 성인, 천주에서는 선자의 가정의 도리를 완성할 것을 맹세하나이다.
Family pledge number 2. Our family, the owner of Chonglaguk, pledges to represent and become central to heaven and earth by attending the Heavenly Parent and True Parents. We pledge to perfect the dutiful family way of filial sons and daughters in our family, patriots in our nation, saints in the world, and divine sons and daughters in heaven and on earth by centering on true love. Thank you. I'd like to ask Mary if she could offer the opening prayer. Mary.
Our most beloved Heavenly Parent, we're so grateful for your love, for your guidance. So grateful that you've worked with us throughout history, even though we're completely separated from you. We're so grateful for our true parents who have walked the most difficult course in order to restore humanity back to you, to show us the way, to give us the words, the truth that we need to transform our lives, and to help us and guide us to work together with true parents and with you, Heavenly Parent, to restore this world. Heavenly Parent, so many times we feel so overburdened when we see the state and the situation in all the nations, Heavenly Parent, that we just connect it to your heart. We understand your suffering. We understand how much you long to see your children return to you, to reflect your love, your character, and the beautiful purity and the beautiful families that you envision. Heavenly Parent, gradually this world is being transformed as more and more people receive the blessing and work to establish families that truly are a reflection of your own ideal, your own heart, your own character. I pray that every day we can work toward fulfilling your vision, your dream, and we can bring a victory for our true parents who are also longing for us to be able to fulfill our responsibility. Heavenly Parent, please be with us this morning as we hear your message and study your words. And we thank you and we offer this prayer in the name of Douglas and Mary, Carlos Moriarty, Blessed Central Family, Adieu.
Adieu. I won't, because it's I'm not going to ask you to give a warm welcome to me. Instead, I will offer a warm welcome to you all for coming and listening to my presentation today. As you can see, up there at the moment is the title, and And so you can actually give yourselves an applaud for being here. And I'm grateful that you are here to listen to this. And as you can see, I've chosen something by Father called the Religious Person's Attitude that Father gave on the 29th of March in 1959 in Seoul, Korea. So it's very early, just before the blessing, the holy blessing in 1960. So people even refers to himself as Master. This yellow line is interesting that it pops up. I noticed it happened with Reverend Yutaka. I think it's because we have sharing on, and I'm just going to clear all annotations. It's like there's an option in there where you can annotate or you can give some expression, and someone can randomly go in there and just draw. And so it's not me or Reverend Yutaka drawing. I noticed a few times Reverend Yutaka had a big red mark and stuff. It's someone just playing with their own, but it actually appears on the screen for everyone. So to get rid of it, if it ever happens, you go up to annotate and you say clear all drawings, and that it removes it. So anyway, that's a side thing. But what I want to talk about is this speech that Father gave, A Religious Person's Attitude. It's actually very long, and I've just taken some excerpts, and I'll begin. So I believe that for those trying to lead a true life of faith, this only happens when the great infinite heaven, the garden of eternal ideology that we cannot even imagine, has a reciprocal relationship with the being called I. Heaven will press me constantly and warmly to make an effort to attain the ideology in reality. The path of faith continues upon that basis alone. The kingdom we long for cannot be elucidated by dreams or imagination, or even by wise conjecture. That world is necessary for us. It is the limitless world of the ideal, the world of goodness, happiness, love, and the ideology of which we dream. So, Father is saying here that the essential thing is not the ideology. The essential thing really is the relationship with our Heavenly Parent, and with me, with my personal connection to God. And so this whole thing that Father is talking about is emphasizing, and there's a few slides I'll go through and read, but he's emphasizing over and over again to that the relationship and what that relationship is. And so we need that relationship, not just the idea, not just, as it says, wise conjecture. We need a substantial relationship, a reciprocal relationship. And the thing about reciprocal, it's not just anything random. It's not just a relationship that comes together for convenience. Reciprocal means that it's a partnership, and it adds up to one. So it's a relationship of oneness, not just a matching of pairs or differences. The whole purpose is to obtain oneness with ourselves, oneness with our partners, oneness within the community, and ultimately oneness with God. So I'll continue. That world is the heavenly kingdom of faith in which we wish to live. From a worldly point of view, those who keep faith with the intrinsic qualities of that world might be seen as extremely pitiful, terrible, lonely, or ultimately sorrowful. It depends upon how you view them. If this is one who feels and experiences heaven's heart, even in such a situation, and feels the shock and the stimulus of that realm to the heart, no matter what kind of persecution, suffering, or death tries to block the way, nothing can stop him from going this path. So it doesn't matter how we appear or look. And in many times we we look very poor at even amongst ourselves. You know, we have different standards of people who seem to be apparently more affluent than others, and even we may even think of ourselves as in a sorrowful, pitiful way. But actually, you know, we need to realize that it doesn't matter our external at all. It's all to do with feeling and experiencing heaven's heart, to understanding our true parents, you know, deep love for us. So letting this kind of heart stimulate the mind and letting that mind push the body to move, trying to feel and experience the life in which one unconsciously walks forth towards the endless territory. It is the very life of a religious person in this world today. Only when one can lead life with this kind of stimulus and manifest the far distant ideology as the power of real life is one, a truly religious person. Going further, only when one cultivates the foundation of mind with which he can push out power, even the sweeping wave of death from his surroundings, can heaven acknowledge him as a truly religious person. Again, Father is emphasizing that our life, the way that we feel, you know, we should even be to the point of done unconsciously, that we really connect to God, that gives us the real power of life. Yeah, and that's a truly religious person. A religious person breathes and feels and walks and talks, you know, in oneness with God. That is how I see it. What is felt through self-realization, when we cry out facing heaven, is greater than anything felt through doctrine or thought. The same thing can manifest itself as the value of light in our minds and bodies and in the heart of our circumstances. The religious life can be considered going through the path of victory in such an important, decisive position. We know very well that throughout history, this path has been heaped with persecution, sorrow, the cross, and death. Because we have this kind of history and tradition, today you also are placed in a position where you must not betray this historical course of faith. And so that's been the path of humanity once God was able to bring the truth through the different saints and sages and his son, you know, Christ Jesus and our true parents. It's always been the path of all of us who are in the Cain position, connecting to Abel, as to say, you know, that we don't betray. We saw, you know, at the time when Jesus was crying at Gethsemane, and the three, you know, in prayer, supposed to be together, you know, supporting Jesus, but they betrayed, you know, time and time again, until he went to the cross alone, in spite of everything, but in oneness with God and in oneness with God's heart and love. And that was the ultimate thing. It didn't matter. You know, it would have been, of course, better if everyone accepted and changed the history completely, but it didn't matter that others persecuted, and that was the course that Jesus went, the cross. It didn't matter, because his love of God, his faith never changed, never wavered. And we need to reflect whether we can do the same, and that we can. For that reason, I must stress that it is more valuable than anything else that we assume a correct attitude of faith today. You should know how to establish a national standard. Go beyond me, rise above the family and the people, and indemnify the sorrow within the realm of that ideology. Only then can you become individuals with the qualifications to comfort the Father, who has labored for 6,000 years to seek and establish his ideology in the form of a nation, who has hoped for a nation that went beyond the sorrowful relationship. So Father is saying, okay, you know, we know we can connect with God's heart, so let's just do it. Go do more than what Father is saying. This is back in 1959. You know, we're talking about national restoration. You know, North and South Korea being united as one finally. And Father's saying, you should know how to establish a national standard and go beyond me. And that standard is the standard of heart, the culture of heart. And we need to make that a reality within ourselves. In such a position, you will, for the first time, be affirmed as sons and daughters. In such a position, the relationship with heaven will be restored for the first time. In such a position, the history of joy will begin. No matter who they are, unless a person has a sovereignty, any passerby can cajole them and laugh at them. However, from the day sovereignty is established, no one can pass by freely or cajole them as he pleases. The Christians scattered around the world today have not become the people of the kingdom of God. They have not become the heavenly people with the heavenly sovereignty. And so Father is emphasizing again how important that nation is, how important that sovereignty is. You know, Mother is wanting to see the Chongyilguk victors, you know, the victors of heaven, you know, the ones that can be, you know, wear the put on a gold tie, but the ones that can go and be put into the and registered into the book of life as the people of God, and no one can take that away. You know, we need to have that relationship restored. And we are living in the time when it can do. And we represent the heart of Christianity, because we are continuing the mission together with our true parents that Jesus left unfulfilled at that time because of the ignorance of the people, not because of any lack, but because he was rejected. And we are still faced with that same rejection, but we have to change the mindset of ourselves so that we can change the mindset of others. Unless the heavenly people have the sovereignty to take care of them, that people can then be cajoled and abandoned. You should know this. God did not attempt to restore the heavenly sovereignty in Egypt, centering on the 600,000 Israelites. He didn't do it in Egypt. Why did he drive the mass of 600,000 people out into the wilderness towards Canaan in the hope of establishing a nation with a heavenly sovereignty? It was because he had to establish a sovereign nation. Heaven could direct, even if he had to receive all kinds of persecution and go over the hill of death. So God, you know, didn't set it up in Egypt. He had to have a pure people who are all focused on that sovereignty, on that nation of God, on being people that, you know, are the true family of God. So God is still seeking that. And that's where we are marching with our mother towards. We must understand the heart of heaven, who drove the Israelites out into the wilderness in this manner, where death rolled in upon them. Unless a people equips itself with the form of a nation and then restores the sovereignty with which it can attend God, that people cannot escape being ruined and trampled upon. Seeing the providence of heaven from this standpoint, it is not time for the Christians scattered around the world to put their denominations first. They must consider the thought of a heavenly people, going beyond chosen people type thinking. This is the thought of heaven. So Father is saying he didn't do it just for Israel. He's doing it all. You know, he didn't do it just for Christians, and that the Christians to split into denominations and say that their denomination is better than the other. He didn't do it for that. He did it for the nation, for the people of God, so that God can rest here upon this earth substantially. So we are in this together, and we are walking towards that same goal that Father and true parents and heavenly parents. This is the thought of heaven. An altar must emerge with the pride and integrity of being the people of that nation, and it must form heavenly ties, earthly ties, historical ties, and human ties, and unite itself centered on heaven. Unless this type of altar emerges, talk of realizing the heavenly kingdom on earth is nothing but a dream. You must know that each of you has a historical relationship of numerous enemies and numerous prophets and sages being made fools of deep within you. You have the relationship of a keen, sorrowful history deep within you, heaven's grief because of Satan. And so we need to recognize where we are. You know, when Father's talking about numerous enemies and numerous prophets and sages that have been made fools of deep within you. We have in us, our ancestors that are our enemies, and ancestors that are trying to help and enlighten us, and that the overall pervading atmosphere, you could say, within you is that of being deeply oppressed. But we need to recognize this. We need to recognize how sorrowful God is over the fact that Satan has come to dominate us in the world, and that this pervades everything, and still affecting us today, and still affecting, even though we're being blessed and are in God's lineage, we still have to manifest it. We still have to embrace our heavenly parents with deep love and get out of the realm of a dream, out of the realm of just thinking about it. You may meet an individual and he or she may seem to be a mere human being to which you to relate, yet there may be very complicated relationships and circumstances of heaven involved with him or her. You must know that there has been cosmic level events in the background of that relationship. Heaven has wandered for 6,000 years in search of the sovereignty, in search of one-ism, one relationship and comrade with a true heart. This historical relationship cannot be denied. Living a life which inherits and crosses the historical course of the integrated relationships is a life of faith. I'll read that sentence again. Living a life which inherits and crosses the historical course of the integrated relationships is a life of faith. So we need that true heart. We need that one-ism. We need to be able to inherit the heart of God and be victorious in the historical course, be victorious in subjugating Satan. This is our life of faith. That being the case, no matter how much deficiency a comrade has, no matter how insufficient a family member is, and no matter how much a family member shocks you, but how could your humiliation be greater than your wish to form ties with heaven? Where would there be a greater sorrow than that which you would feel if you forsook that relationship? We know that the person who renders unselfish, devoted service for the sake of the nation is called a patriot. The man who forsakes himself for the good of his family and relatives is called a filial son. A woman who lives unselfishly as a sacrificial offering for her family is called a virtuous woman. So we need to realize Father is trying to help us to recognize it doesn't matter how limiting we are, how deficient we are, how lacking we shouldn't allow the shock of the family, the way that the family has gone, not how we expected it when we were young, and then and before our children, then our children came, and then everyone is shocked because they didn't do what we expected. They didn't become mini me, they became themselves. And then that expression of their self is not in line with how we thought. How could your humiliation be greater than your wish to form ties with heaven? Father is emphasizing, don't let that dominate where you are. Our job still is to become one with heaven. And if we do that, then we can start to be called a patriot, start to be called a filial son, start to be called a virtuous woman. If you look at the history of relationships today, our relationship with heaven is that of a bride and bridegroom. You must know that throughout history, we have gazed steadily at, and our wailing has reverberated in this reciprocal relationship. The moment I can call God Father, after feeling this kind of Simjong relationship, although I am a being of today, I am not limited to this earth. I am assured of being in the realm of the ideology of the eternal world. Heaven will name such a person as a person of perfection. According to my understanding, a true person of faith must feel the heart of such a relationship above all. So Father is emphasizing again, that history is building this reciprocal relationship, that we have to be able to call God our Father, and not just the idea of our Father, but our Father. Just as we call our physical parents, mum and dad, God is our dad, God is our mum. And we have to say that. We need that Sinjong relationship, that artistic, deep, core relationship, because that is our essential being. That is the reason we were created, to have that relationship. That is the proper attitude. The grace you received is not affected by today's happiness. It is the grace resulting from your having inherited the historical relationship. What should the attitude of a person of faith be? He must have a heart that feels impatient. Because you have the connection, you must know that you cannot help being impatient. What is heaven waiting impatiently for? Heaven longs not for a person of faith, but for a person who practices the truth in life. I long to be a person who practices the truth in life rather than a person of faith. Heaven longs not for the kingdom of hope, but for individuals who can live in that kingdom. So Father is emphasizing again, we talk about a life of faith and how can we live a life of faith. The life of faith is actually a training area so that we can move into a real relationship, practices truth in life. A person who practices truth in life. I long to be a person who practices the truth in life rather than a person of faith. It doesn't matter what we think. It doesn't matter what we dream. It matters how we live our life. Okay, continuing. Today, we hold up a word called faith and wait eagerly. However, we must lead a life of faith beyond that. In other words, we must become members who live with heaven, people who live with heaven, and the church that lives with heaven. We must lead a life of faith in which we can enjoy ourselves and sing and be able to return the glory. Heaven waits eagerly for this. What was it that God impatiently anticipated from our numerous ancestors in the course of history after establishing a world called faith in front of them? You must know that he longed for the individuals of faith themselves who were fighting in their respective places. So heaven is waiting for us to live a life, not just to live a life and then we can enjoy. We must lead a life of faith in which we can enjoy ourselves and sing and be able to return the glory to God. So just as you have a birthday party or a celebration and your parents and your family are there, that you sing and you enjoy together and everyone is happy. That's the process of returning glory back to God. That embrace of everyone, loving each other and enjoying each other's company and really expanding the love within to without. But for people who could live with him, having remained until the last days, God waited impatiently for one who could fade away for the sake of faith, who could resurrect after dying for the sake of faith, and who could escape the realm of death and sing of the joy of resurrection in the realm of life, calling God Father in the everlasting world. God waits eagerly for such an individual. Thinking of this, you must become people who know how to long for the self within you, for whom he eagerly waits. You must strive to seek out such a self and meet him. So God is waiting for us to wake up, in essence. Look, in you is the connecting point with me, the Father. So God is saying that to us. He's eagerly waiting for you to recognize who you are. You must become the people who know how to long for the self within you, for whom he eagerly waits. So we have to pull out our true self. We have to remove the garbage of the satanic realm that has buried us and dig through the crap that's in our hearts to emerge like a flower blooming, you know, like a butterfly coming out of a chrysalis, that our spirit just explodes with the love and joy of God. Although you are standing here today, you know very well that you are not those for whom heaven waits impatiently. You are not all for whom heaven searches. For that reason, if you have a mind that thinks of and cares for heaven and have a connection with heaven, an ardent mind that waits eagerly for the original you, that mind should be established as your standard. When we seek out such a self, we will be able to live attending the Father who has been seeking such a self, bragging about me as such and singing of my value. You must become the people who long to be such selves. If you lose this Simjang, you will not be able to go the path of faith. So Father is stressing again, you know, what's the path of faith? It's for the emergence of our true original self. You know, the original part that God put there, the original part through which the connection of oneness is made. It is not all the stuff around. It's not what we imagine ourselves to be. It's the standard of pushing and seeking the original essence of us. That's the standard. You know, that mind should be established as your standard. And so we should really seek our original self. As Father says, if you lose this Simjang, this heart, this connecting point, you will not be able to go the path of faith. In other words, you can't even start to experience or imagine. We have to seek the right thing. You know, we have a compass in us. The compass is pointing to what? It's pointing to God, but through what? Through our original mind. So we should seek our original mind. To begin centered on myself, to bring settlement centered on myself, to pass judgment centered on himself, as in the most effective way for a person. Therefore, rather than pursuing the relative self, you should pursue the self who has a direct connection to heaven, the one with the mind that pursues value. The stimulus to cry out for and to fight, to seek such a self should begin with me. Thus, it should test my mettle. Only when that self is stimulated do I and the hoped for I form mutual ties with which we surmount the difficult path of faith without problems. You must know this. Your Father is trying to help us to see and recognize where we stand in this contradictory state of two I's, the original I and the fallen I, and how this has permeated our being. And we are left in this contradictory state, even though people are blessed, still the mind is all over the place, because we, as it says here, it should test my mettle. Okay, only when the self is stimulated do I and the hoped for I form mutual ties with which we surmount the difficult path of faith without problems. You must know this. So we have to stimulate ourselves and stimulate the origin within us. We've got to make this give and take relationship inside ourselves, this mind and body unity that we talk about, is that there's an internal mind and body unity going on. And that internal mind and body unity is that consciousness and ourself in this relationship that creates that path. So we need to recognize that we are relating to our consciousness. Our conscience talks to us, right? But why does the conscience only talk to us when we do something wrong? And then we suddenly feel guilty. Or sometimes on the rare moments we do something, we feel proud of ourselves. And it's like it's distinct from us. Father is saying, no, that's not the way it's supposed to be. That consciousness and us that is meant to be connected together in such a deep, substantial way that we are one. Our conscious action and our thought are the same. They're not these two distinct things that has this, when an external stimulus happens, that we react this way. No, it's saying we need to recognize that we have to do. Only when that self is stimulated do I and the hoped for I form mutual ties with which we surmount the difficult path of faith without problems. So Father is saying we've got to go deeper. We've got to become one with I and I. We've got to become the true I. So this teacher you follow has limitless feeling regarding humankind today. While I feel like cursing endlessly at the same time, I feel like singing about the self which is hopeful. You must know how to feel such a mind each hour throughout your lifetime. Since this is a path we take to seek such a self, without caring at all about the circumstances and situations relating to persons or the church, you must feel that you cannot abandon that path, nor can you loiter. You cannot hesitate and merely watch. Any person who retreats from such a course will not be able to own the hoped for self. We will sigh for grief from that time on. You must realize that if you keep continuing life as it has been up to now, you will fall into a state of being lamentful, desperate, and self-destructive. We cannot help lamenting about being incompetent and drained of vitality. Seeking and impatiently waiting for such a hoped-for self is the best standard for the ideal person of faith. You must be deeply imbued with the Simjang, wishing to meet such a self someday. Only then can you know how to look at heaven, and you will fight to find that self. And it ends there, Arju. The speech is much longer, has many other parts, but this is like the essence of the speech that Father gave back in 1959. And he's really crying out to us to wake up and see our situation. You must realize that if you keep continuing life as it has been up to now, you will fall into a state of being lamentful, desperate, and self-destructive. So if you look at yourself now, where are you? Are you in a life of joy in this oneness? Or are we still in this regretful, lamenting situation? We can't help what's happened, but we can change our relationship. We cannot help lamenting about being incompetent and drained of vitality. Well, we are incompetent. We can say, we've done this or that, or we've achieved this. We've become a Chombo victor. No, it's not because of us at all. It's because of heaven, and it's because of heaven's love and heaven's drive to have one people, that sovereignty, that nation in which God can stand on this earth. And then from that nation, the entire world becomes one family. So we shouldn't lament over the fact that we're not so great. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. Seeking and impatiently waiting for such a hoped for self is the best standard for the ideal person of faith. So we should seek for that reality of ourself being one with God, that deep Simjang. You must be deeply imbued with the Simjang, wishing to meet such a self someday. You have to meet your true self. Our true self is inside us. And we need to let that true self emerge by connecting that, making that relationship of our conscious mind and our self. People these talk about soul and spirit. You could make reference in that respect, our inner soul, connect with our spirit. But there's that internal relationship that is fundamental to the mind and body relationship. Because if our mind is healthy, that is that idea of me is healthy. And people, it looks like Isla's the one that's drawing. So I'll just clear all those drawings again. Because it popped up with a little message saying Isla Willits. And then suddenly a yellow line. I don't know if you saw the yellow line or the message pop up, but I did. Anyway. So what I'm trying to say, sorry for the distraction, what I'm trying to say is only when we have that relationship of the mind, ourself, that consciousness, that become that true person, that internal give and take, that internal relationship of oneness has to happen before the external relationship of that oneness, that internal connection. You know, that we talk about the faith to God, and then the substantial relationship between Cain and Abel. We have the vertical line and the horizontal line. We've got to get the vertical first. We've got to get that relationship of oneness, because that is the core of who we are. And by having that, then it can expand. God can only come to earth through the vertical. And that's why it has to be an absolute vertical line that doesn't have any shadow, because God can only come down that way. If we're leaning to the left or leaning to the right, it doesn't connect. We have to be completely standing straight, and then make that relationship with ourself centered on the heart of God. You must be deeply imbued with Simjung, wishing to meet such a self someday. Only then can you know how to look at heaven, and you will fight to find that self, Jew Father is saying. So thank you for listening. Thank you for coming and attend. Thank you, and God bless. And here are our true parents that are this model and standard, but we have to make it for real. Our life of faith and our life of substance have to be connected, but first faith, then substance, and then the Messiah, the kingdom of heaven. So this is truly the pathway that we all are walking. So thank you, and I'll stop sharing now. So thank you, everyone, and well, thank you. So I won't reflect on what I've just said, because I've just said it. But so I'll just open it up to everyone. Yes, Doug, go ahead.
John, that was like a supernova of sermons. It exploded before us, and it provoked a lot of memories that I'm sure everyone here had. And I'm going to try to help everyone, because I needed help. It was an overwhelming, amazing sharing. Thank you. But from my small experiences, and believe me, they're smaller than a lot of you, I can say that I had some things that might give some context. The first thing that came to my mind was about 20 years ago. I was driving along Jericho Turnpike, all the cars and the traffic and everyday life, and I saw in the sky thousands of birds, and they formed a perfect circle. I'm not talking about, there was no edge, there was nothing wrong with that circle, but the circle was totally spherical. Top, bottom, front, back, left, right, center, and it moved like this from one side of the highway to the other, you know? And it was so perfectly connected all to each other. Each bird was perfectly in alignment with the other. And I go, how do they do that? How is that done? It's not like they were streaming or anything like that even. It was a perfect circle. So I found out later on there's a word for that called numeration, you know? And I was thinking, gee, why can't human beings move as one like that? Why can't we move together in unity? And is that a sign that maybe we can, you know? And I always kept that in the back of my mind. So that's the foundation for what I can share to support what you were saying as a goal. But the other thing is, I was on the MFT one time really praying to know God, and I had this small but very big experience. I wanted to know God, and all of a sudden he appeared to me as me, you know? I was in my MFT clothes, and there was God in my MFT clothes. It was of my face facing God's face, you know? But one was the broken me, you know, of my feelings and shattered life experience of 6,000 fallen years. And the other one was the original mind of me. And God showed me that he is me and I. to find that I was set up through that dream for me as a goal, and understanding that God is me. I am God, you know. And then I was thinking the other day, there's this internet group called MeWe, you know. It was formed by the guy who was a friend of Steve Jobs of Apple. And he left, and I go, that's an interesting, why would he choose MeWe? But I was thinking, we have to go from I to me, you know, fully knowing. When you get the I integrated, your original I, and it's integrated and fully understood and accepted, embraced, then you become me, you know. And then me has to be we, has to become we. So you have to, as a sphere, an individual sphere, know your top, your bottom, heaven and hell, your future, your past, what's aside of you. You have to move like a sphere, completely centered inside yourself. And then you can acknowledge and sense the presence of the other, you know, another human being. We are looking at this monitor with all of our pictures. And we have to become from me in each one of our little frames to we, moving about together. So we're in that process, and you spoke about it. There's a lot more things to say, but I couldn't even begin to answer all of this. But a lot of times in our life of faith, we're moved by God to join, and our hearts really open up with some kind of experience where we fall in love with God. But then that is the shimjung that God gives us as a gift, a visionary experience to never forget. So it says, if you lose this shimjung, you will not be able to go the path of faith, nor will you be able to go beyond faith into experience. So what we have to be mindful is that when God put fire into us to ever pursue him and search him out and to join our movement or to seek God, then comes all the trials and the tribulations and the difficulties of life itself piled upon us. And we have to push them out. We have to digest them, like Father said, carp has to digest all the troubles around it. And sometimes we get lost because it's so difficult. And there's so many, and they go on for so long. That's why we can never forget our childhood. We can never forget our original shimjung and our original passion. And I just wanted to say that to support it, because everyone here is doing the same thing, you know. Very inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, said he had his hand up actually yesterday, but today he's here. So let's go ahead.
Reverend John, to see your faces, to see the face of God. Good morning.
And yours too.
I love your golden bow, and there's a Samoan movie lately, and one of the actors says, "I wish I had a T-shirt like that," and well, I'm thinking, I wish I had a golden bow like that. Yeah, we're talking about the historical eye. I just caught the last frame of your PowerPoint. I've just come back from taking the kids to work and school, and but I hope that's the gist of what I caught, was that the historical eye of restoration in the divine principle, that we are in that place of seeking the ideal I, and I'm very conscious of that. You know, tough times, you have to remember those good times, those moments when we recognize the ideal I, isn't it? And you live and you live on those confidence, you know, the confidence on that identity, and the love of God in those moments when you saw God and God saw you, you know. So thank you for the wonderful message. Very much the case, in many different scenarios of pioneering and right here in Samoa with its own unique nuances and things that you got to deal with. Yeah, there's so many layers of that you need to, and we long for that breakthrough. This morning, listening to Dr. Young, again talking about the longing heart, you know, including your longing heart for your ideal, you know, the ideal setting, you know, the one that promised to true father or to true mother in those moments. And you know, you remember the times that father did martial arts kicks on you, you know, kick you in the thigh and the groin, and you know, in the middle of a leaders meeting, or the one that shook your hands on the hill here when they came, and you felt like he was saying, I trust you, everything's okay, and I trust you, you know. So yeah, you need those. It's the most important realization, that, you know, it's that longing heart for that true self and for the ideal, that it's as Douglas was saying, it's a me, we, you know. It's never just me, it's never just we, but it's a me, we, you know. It's a sphere. It's the center of the One Wado martial arts, you know, the philosophy that father was trying to convey in his martial arts, was that it's a sphere, everything is connected, and you got to understand that very essence principle in order to live it and fulfill it. Yeah, so thank you for that. I really appreciate it, and long to always relate to all my beloved brothers and sisters as the faces and the personalities of God. And yeah, let's build our we sphere here in Oceania. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sally. Okay, yes, Mary, go ahead.
Morning. Actually, I wanted to share yesterday. So we're going back to the ocean for a moment. Yeah, growing up on King Island, I was surrounded by ocean. And as a, you know, as a teenager or a child, we used to ride our horses along the beach. And on King Island, there's beaches with no people. So it's just you and the creation and God, even though I didn't really understand God at that point. But I was camping on Flinders Island on a beach there, and it was just an amazing beach with mountains at one end and beautiful sunset. And I had this experience. And it said, the creation is so great, it's greater than people, but people are supposed to be greater than the creation. So from that, I realized we weren't fulfilling our responsibility. So that was part of my journey to find the church. But anyway, and then now skipping to Gloucester, I had the amazing experience to be able to do Ocean Challenge for about 40 days. And you know, I'll never forget the days when it was pouring with rain and freezing cold and cutting the frozen chum, you know, on the boat ready to put on the hook, you know. But yeah, it was about the toward the end of the 40 days where our team was 4 of us on the boat, and we were all, for some reason that day, very meditative, where every other day everybody had been sort of chattering. And anyway, eventually somebody mentioned, from the fish finder, there was a tuna under the boat. Anyway, eventually we hooked that tuna, and sorry, I'm so emotional. Yeah, it was just so amazing. Everybody's just totally united, you know, focusing on catching that fish. Yeah, it's just, I don't know how long we fought it for. It was probably, I don't know whether it was an hour or half an hour, I'm not sure, but eventually we caught it. And yeah, it was just so amazing experience. I think it was over 600 pounds. So it wasn't like the big one father caught, over 1,000, but it was still a beautiful beautiful fish. And yeah, we had to tie it alongside the boat because the Good Go boats are quite small, so we had to tie it alongside the boat to take it into harbour. But anyway, it was put on ice, sent to Japan to as sushi. So Anyway, that fish gave us an amazing experience, and Hiroshi Suzuki was the captain of the boat. He said we'll always be connected because we caught tuna together. And even just just this last year, I saw him in Korea, and it was like all that experience just comes back. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. Thank you, everyone. Actually, our time is up. I'm sure people have many things to say, but please save them for next time. I'll just share the screen and we can pray together. Okay, let's begin. Thank you, everyone. Adieu, 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 everyone. Thank you, and have a great day, and enjoy creating the new you. Okay, bye.
Me, us.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
we. Bye bye. Have a
Thank
blessed
you.
day, everyone.
Bye, Chihiro.
Bye, Kathy.
Bye, Kathy.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.